So you're preparing for or you're in retirement, you have a sizable diversified portfolio, you have deferred income annuities, you've hedged your bet with life and long-term care insurance, everything's in place for a successful retirement, or so you think. Hi, I'm Michael Shotnik, the Reverse Mortgage Man, here to be your resource for everything retirement and reverse mortgage related. Feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions, or feel free to post a comment underneath the video and I'll be sure to respond. If you haven't done so already, hit the little subscribe button and the little bell next to it to receive notifications on future videos. I will continue to create content that's topical and also helpful for those that are preparing for or in retirement. So what could go wrong? Let's flash back to 2007. After doubling in value, the Dow dropped 54% in a mere 17 months. If preparing for or in early retirement, sequence of returns risk is a very powerful concept that can be super impactful on the longevity of your retirement. So what is this? It's ultimately the order of returns during any stage of the distribution phase of retirement. It can be especially impactful if you're taking fixed returns from your investments. Any negative return that you take a distribution on during the first few years of retirement can significantly impact the longevity of your account if not protected against. So let's talk through a few different examples of how sequence of returns risks can be approached and ultimately longevity can be gained by a proactive approach. So some assumptions we'll make here: retirement age of 65, life expectancy of 90, initial portfolio value of $1 million, annual distributions of 5%, so $50,000 a year in this case, increasing 3% annually to offset inflation, and an average rate of return of 7%. So for our first scenario, scenario number one, we're going to assume a 7% return each and every year from the age of 65 to 90. It's not realistic, however, a very good baseline to compare to. So year one, $50,000 in distributions, increasing 3% per year to a level of $105,000, so more than double in the final year. Through 90, the portfolio remains intact with an ending balance, so at age 90, of $924,000. Scenario number two simulates really good early years. So let's assume the retiree is fortunate enough to retire at the beginning of a bull market. So the investment returns exceed the withdrawal rate of 5% plus 3% annually. There's a couple negative years in there, and then at the tail end of retirement, so leading up to age 90, 3 years of a bear market, so a negative market. Overall, the average rate of return is 7%, and because of the early success, so when the portfolio was its largest, our senior at 90 years old has a balance of $1.8 million. In scenario number three, we're going to assume the opposite of scenario number two, and that is bad early years. So the first 3 years of retirement were a bear market. The retiree's investment portfolio reduced down to $570,000 in total value. 12 of the next 14 years had positive returns. And like all the other scenarios, when averaged out, the average rate of return was 7%. Unfortunately, this senior's portfolio was depleted, so zero balance at age 81, all a result of the bad early years. If the retiree would have not accounted for inflation and just taken $50,000 a year, there would have been some longevity created within the investment portfolio, however, not to 90 years old. And in my opinion, it's not a sustainable approach. The cost of living does increase, so it would have created a scenario where our retiree maybe would have had to have sold their home and downsized, or in some other way create some income. Okay, after talking through a few different scenarios, let's circle back and let's dig into a sequence of returns risk insurance. And what do I mean by that? Ultimately, that is how you create longevity with sequencing the returns and ultimately the risk that applies there. And there are several strategies to do so and leveraging reverse mortgages. However, there's one very powerful strategy that we're going to dig into. Due to the fact that the first few years of retirement are so important, that's ultimately where the reverse mortgage and the strategy becomes powerful. If you can protect against taking losses those first few years when your account balance is the largest, you create years and years of longevity on the tail end by doing a few simple things. So ultimately, how do you utilize a reverse mortgage to insure against sequence of returns risk? And it's really pretty simple. For any given year, if you have a loss in your investment portfolio, do not take distributions from that account. Take withdrawals from the reverse mortgage, bear in mind they are tax-free, and use that to supplement during a down market or a bear market. And then when the market turns, then you turn off the reverse mortgage withdrawals and go back to the distributions from your investment portfolio. Now let's add in an additional scenario. So let's go back and let's say scenario number 3, where the retiree had a really bad few years to start retirement. And let's assume that during those first 3 years, rather than taking distributions from their investment accounts, they supplemented or took withdrawals from their reverse mortgage. And let's talk through the implications of that. From age 65 through 67, they took withdrawals totaling $154,000. And then over the course of retirement, there were 2 other bad years that they drew from the reverse mortgage, accounting for inflation on top of the 5% withdrawals. They took a total of $289,000 from the reverse mortgage. By taking the initial withdrawals during first years of retirement and then the 2 additional years, so a total of 5 years, they were able to sustain their portfolio through retirement, so through the age of 90. So comparing to scenario number 3, where they fully depleted their investment accounts at age 81, with a reverse mortgage, they had about $586,000 in assets remaining at 81. And then with the reverse mortgage plan, at the end of retirement, so age 90, they had $110,000 in assets left in their investment account. In conclusion, and as the numbers bear out, a reverse mortgage with a line of credit can really help bridge the gap and cover a few bad years and really help a retiree ride the storm and avoid selling their assets on the way down and or avoid having to buy back into the market on the way up, which generally seems to be a losing proposition. And over and above that, on a personal level, the advantages a reverse mortgage have to offer can really offer peace of mind and the comfort that knowing there is a plan there. If for whatever the market does, you can strategize and ultimately kind of live out retirement and do so with peace of mind. I'm Michael Shotnik, the Reverse Mortgage Man, here to be your resource for everything retirement and reverse mortgage related.